The protagonist, Raishin, is sleeping when he continuously hears whispers in his ear saying that Yaya is adorable and that she will be Raishin's wife. All these words are coming from Yaya, the girl accompanying him. She thinks it's a love spell, but he sees it as something that taints his soul. The two are on their way to a boarding school, and Yaya is excited about living together with Raishin and hopes they will have many sleepless nights. However, Raishin refuses, stating that he needs to sleep, and if she does anything inappropriate, he will throw her out. Suddenly, the train starts shaking violently, forcing Raishin to support the little girl sitting next to him. When he checks, he sees that the train has lost its brakes and is speeding past the station. He asks someone on the train how far it is to the final station and learns that it's only a few miles away, so he sends Yaya outside and runs forward. He then climbs up slowly while Yaya has already pulled all the brakes in each car without any effect. So they decide to head to the engine room. Raishin tells Yaya to stop the train from the front, while he uses magic to increase her strength. They struggle for a while, but eventually manage to stop the train, though there is still some damage. The little girl from earlier thinks Raishin is a mage, but he is merely a puppet master, and Yaya is a puppet with her own consciousness and awareness. They then arrive at the magical academy where the night festival will take place, and once they pass through these gates, it will be difficult for them to leave for a while. She is ready to follow him everywhere, but he wants her to remember that she is merely a tool for his revenge. She accepts this because a puppet only has life when it has a purpose. That day, Raishin takes the entrance exam, and by the end of the day, he finds out that his results place him second, but from the bottom up. He can't accept that she is an amazing puppet while he, as her master, is so lousy. He mentions someone named Shauko, which makes Yaya angry because he always thinks about this Shauko. The teacher then steps out. Her name is Kimberly, and she will be the one to guide him. Raishin directly expresses his desire to participate in the night party, but she tells him that only the top 100 students are allowed to join, so he will have to study to death if he wants to climb to that rank. The night party is where mages fight each other until only one remains standing. He is determined to be that last person, making her curious about his interest in the night party. He wants to become a sage. With that title, he will have everything access to forbidden magic and recognition as a commander by all armies. At this school, they are actively training puppet masters for war, and the night festival aims to find the strongest one. Later, he accidentally ends up at the girls' dormitory and is chased away by a girl. He then has to find the boys' dormitory, with his first goal being to obtain a code that grants him the right to participate in the night party to avenge the one he has been searching for so long. The next morning, the girl Raishin encountered at the girls' dormitory the previous evening appears again. She is Charlotte, a candidate for the night party, and has a dragon as her pet. The dragon teases her about scaring her friends away and possibly being single forever because no one will follow her. However, she is confident that with her beauty, someone will pursue her, and Raishin approaches her not to ask for her number, but for her code. The way to obtain it is through a challenge. Raishin challenges Charlotte and is mocked by her for being stupid enough to challenge her while being at the bottom of the rankings. She enlarges her dragon, ready for battle. But suddenly, many other people send their puppets to attack. The dragon is attacked at close range, doused with water, and frozen. Charlotte is thrown off her dragon, and Raishin catches her. He sees the others playing dirty by stealing his prey, but they claim they have been planning this for weeks. One of them sneak attacks Raishin, but he is protected. Since they broke the rules by attacking the puppeteer, he decides not to hold back. Raishin activates his observational ability, foreseeing a short distance into the future, and uses it to decapitate two puppets. Charlotte commands her dragon to attack, finishing off the remaining enemies. She does not acknowledge being helped by him and wants to know his name. They introduce themselves, and Raishin decides to leave, suggesting they fight another time. The dragon notices that Raishin seems to have identified its injury and wants a fair fight. That night, Yaya complains about being tired from the day's fighting and wants to sleep with Raishin. He agrees but forbids her from touching him. During the night, a creature appears and consumes the core of a puppet. The next morning, Ration goes to mooch food off Charlotte because he is poor. She lets him run up a tab to pay later. She tries to act tsundere, but Ration and the dragon do not pay her any mind. Suddenly, Ration spots Magnus, who is considered one of the top students at the academy and the person Ration seeks revenge against. Ration and Yair rush down to fight him, but Ration faces Magnus alone. He had lost his entire family and his beloved sister, and Magnus seems to be responsible for it. He tells Magnus that he has traveled halfway around the world to find him, but Magnus thinks Ration has mistaken him for someone else. Ration presents something to Magnus. Magnus's puppets immediately surround Ration in a flash, even before Yair can react. Magnus is considered the most experienced combatant at the academy, capable of controlling 6 puppets simultaneously and close to earning the title of sage. However, Ration only wants to give Magnus a gift, which Magnus accepts before leaving. Yair apologizes for not being able to do anything, and although Ration hates to admit it, he cannot fight Magnus at this moment. Even with his ability to foresee the future, he cannot counter Magnus's 6 puppets simultaneously. Later, Yair joins Ration in the bath, confident that he will eventually win, and begins teasing him. The next morning, Ration meets the academy's legal pillar and head of the disciplinary committee, Felix. Felix wants to discuss a few things with him, but Ration refuses, so Felix has to bring up the matter concerning the code. In class, Ration is distracted by Felix's words and gets hit in the head with a piece of chalk. Kimberly reminds him that she has to teach this material again because of those who failed the entrance exam, like him. She asks Ration a question, but he cannot answer, so Charlotte is called to answer in his place. She lectured about what allows a puppet to reach a near-human level of completeness, but emphasized that no matter how hard one tries, a puppet is still a puppet, so there's no point in trying to make them too human. Knowing she was taking a jab at Yair, Ration stood up and declared that Yair is the strongest puppet. At the end of the lesson, Charlotte noticed Ration going to meet Felix and wondered what they were doing. The dragon liked Ration because he treated it as a sentient being rather than just a puppet. Felix showed Ration some recent cases. Since last year, 26 students have gone missing, and 12 puppets have been devoured. The suspect is thought to be a cannibal, and Felix needs Ration to capture this person because he just arrived and couldn't be the culprit. Moreover, Ration is considered very strong. Suddenly, Felix's assistant came in to report that a puppet devoured by the cannibal had been found. Charlotte was also present, and Felix had repeatedly tried to ask her out but was always rejected. Examining the scene, Ration saw that the puppet's heart was missing, just like in previous cases. Charlotte abruptly left without saying anything, and Ration decided to help Felix with this case but would investigate in his own way. Felix's assistant followed Ration and wanted to talk privately, so he sent Yair back to the dormitory, warning her that if he didn't return soon, she would wreck the dormitory. The assistant revealed that Charlotte's dragon was once a ferocious beast but had been turned into a puppet and needed a certain amount of meat to sustain itself. Therefore, she suspected that the cannibal might also have a beast-type puppet. Ration returned to his room to think, while Yair was jealous because he kept following other girls. She demanded to check his body, forcing him to dodge. Charlotte came to the window to find Ration and asked him out on a date. Yair protested, but Ration ignored her and agreed. The next day, Charlotte arranged to meet him at the crime scene, and the date was just a ruse to lure him. But he realized she had no friends and had to ask a newly acquainted person like him. She wanted him to act as bait to lure out the cannibal so she could deal with him. However, he refused because she had promised they would go on a date. They would go into town and not bring any puppets. Yair had no say and couldn't protest, so she knelt down and cried. The dragon reassures her not to worry because he doesn't see any desire in Ration. But he can't be certain because boys at this age can be unpredictable. He doesn't understand why she wants to stick with Ration, as love between humans and puppets is impossible. She knows this but still cries, causing the dragon to nearly drown in her tears. Meanwhile, Ration and Charlotte are out on their date, and by the end of the day, they have dinner together. She is puzzled by his unusual fighting style and asks about it. Raishin explains that he belongs to the school of thought that controls multiple puppets simultaneously. But since he isn't skilled enough yet, he uses his own body in conjunction because he knows a fair bit about martial arts. She is surprised that he has only been learning for 2 years, yet already aims to become a sage. He shifts the topic to her liking Felix, and she explains that she often unintentionally makes enemies and Felix has been helping her. Since Felix is very popular, if she agreed to date him, it would only create more enemies. Afterward, they go shopping and return to the school, where they suddenly notice many people gathered around a beam of light. Suspecting that the cannibal has targeted Yaya, Raishin rushes back. He meets Felix and checks the scene, relieved to find that Yaya is unharmed. He recognizes the puppet that fought him the previous day. Felix tells Charlotte not to investigate anymore. She seems to distrust Felix, so she chose Raishin instead. Felix deliberately hurt her feelings to make her stop acting recklessly, planning to make amends with her later. When Raishin returns, he finds Yaya saying she prepared food for him, but everything is empty. He realizes she is emotionally affected by him being with another girl, so he gives her a new pair of shoes and explains that he isn't interested in Charlotte. He only accompanies her because she is under suspicion. The fact that the cannibal acted while he was with Charlotte proves her innocence, but the dragon is still uncertain because it can operate without Charlotte nearby. Felix's assistant calls Raishin, asking about Charlotte since she hasn't returned to the girls' dormitory. He then goes to look for her with Yaya. The creator of Yaya, Shoko, arrives to meet both of them. Shoko is disappointed that Raishin hasn't thoroughly defeated any puppets yet. He explains that he sees puppets as people and only needs to defeat them, not destroy their hearts to kill them. Hearing this, Shoko provided Raishin with information about the cannibal. The cannibal is very difficult to defeat and seems to be backed by a noble at the academy, so it won't be easy for Raishin to deal with him. However, Raishin can't leave Charlotte alone because he owes her, so Shoko helped him unseal Yaya's power, reminding him that he still has limits and that Yaya's weaknesses are wind and water, so he needs to avoid those. Raishin then rushed off, while Shoko recalled the time she found Raishin after his family was wiped out. She took him in and decided to give him Yaya to fight with, also promising to reveal the location of the person he hates most. To this day, Raishin has not realized his latent strength. His family was once very powerful thanks to their puppet control abilities, but because of this bloodline, misfortune continually befell them. The person Raishin must fight is his own brother, and if he knew this truth, he would hate Shoko. On his way, Raishin encountered Lysette, who was also looking for Charlotte because a pile of puppet hearts was found in Charlotte's room. Raishin wanted to cooperate with Lysette, and they went to the puppet storage together. He had to leave Yaya outside, saying he wanted to see Felix's puppets. Lysette led him to see them, but Raishin remembered the latter part of his conversation with Lysette, where she speculated about a puppet capable of causing such damage at the crime scene. Yet there had been no proper examination. Raishin startled Lysette by questioning her, causing her to deny everything. He then snatched her keys and ran to her storage cabinet, where he discovered Lysette's real body in a container. Immediately, he was knocked unconscious, realizing that she was a puppet. She called for others to capture Raishin, accusing him of colluding with the cannibal. Meanwhile, Charlotte spotted a suspicious puppet, attacked it, and was caught by Felix, who accused her of being the cannibal despite her confusion. Teacher Kimberly arrived and found Raishin and Yaya injured. Suddenly, Yaya burst out, screaming and unleashing an enormous surge of energy. Felix ordered the others to handle the situation elsewhere while he dealt with Charlotte. Felix now confessed that he was the cannibal and called the imposter. He had planned for Raishin to handle her, but Raishin got too deeply involved. She fired an arrow, and Charlotte had her dragon block it. But on the second shot, Raishin and Yaya arrived. Charlotte apologized to Raishin, saying her mistake had caused him to get hurt so badly. But Raishin believed that she had been hurt more. He vowed to take down Felix and end the cannibal case. Previously, Yaya had told Raishin about Charlotte's family, which was once very large with many members and various puppets. One day, the family's puppet dog injured someone, leading to the family's downfall. and most of the puppets were dismantled. Charlotte's family then disappeared, and she was expelled from the boarding school. Now, she was trying to use scholarship money to buy back the hearts of her former family members. This is why she hated the cannibal so much, as she also viewed puppets as people and wanted to become a sage to find her family. Felix continued to blame Charlotte, but Ration knew Charlotte was too kind to be a puppet killer. He would smash the Lysette puppet over there. Charlotte was unaware of this, so the dragon thought the real Lysette had been killed to create the puppet. Ration sent Yaya to break the mask of the puppet, revealing it was indeed the Lysette he had encountered. He asked the puppet its real name and told her to stand aside if she didn't want to serve Felix. But she seemed willing, so he had no choice but to fight. During the fight, Felix had his puppet turn into water, using the same technique as the water puppet Ration had fought before. This showed that the puppet absorbed the powers of the puppets it devoured. The puppet targeted Ration, injuring him, but he still commanded Yaya to attack. She had to return to protect him when the puppet aimed at him again. Felix changed the puppet's weapon to a mace and knocked Ration away. Magnus and teacher Kimberly were observing from the roof, seeing that Ration would soon lose because he had too many weaknesses. Yaya was then caught by the mace and repeatedly slammed down. Ration had to stand up and fight, unleashing his power. Charlotte tried to persuade him to stop, as she was being accused of being the perpetrator, and he would be incriminated too. But as long as he believed she was innocent, that was enough, and he was ready to fight the whole world for that belief. He charged at Felix, but was held back by the puppet. Ration was thrown back again, his wounds worsening. Felix offered him a chance to join his side in the night party, but Ration immediately refused. Felix threw the mace at his face, but Ration had Yaya break it. Yaya then launched a counterattack, and Ration noticed that Felix wasn't having his puppet turn into water anymore, indicating that the absorption ability could only be used for a limited time. Realizing his secret was exposed, Felix had his puppet attack Yaya. They fought from the forest to the arena, and as soon as they hit the ground, the puppet planted its sword and trapped Yaya in an area filled with corrosive mist. Yaya was burned all over her body, but Ration remained calm. He commanded Yaya to attack, blowing Felix's puppet back to its original form. Ration had intentionally let Felix's puppet absorb Yaya's blood because the two types of magic in their blood caused a reaction that nullified the puppet's abilities. Allowing Yaya to be injured was part of Ration's plan. He then had Yaya launch a final, decisive attack, completely destroying Felix's puppet. With only Felix left, Ration slowly approached him. Felix threatened that as a member of the royal family, Ration would face trouble. Felix drew a gun, but Ration knocked it away and punched him. Ration apologized to Yaya for letting her get hurt, but she considered his injuries more important. He then extended a hand to help Charlotte up. Shauko, having seen enough, turned away, while Kimberly, recognizing Ration's strength, decided to hide his test results. Magnus recalled the jar Ration had given him, which seemed to contain ashes, indicating that Ration saw Magnus as the one he needed to avenge. Kimberly had heard that Magnus's puppets required living creatures as materials. Ration was then acknowledged by the principal and given a code, officially making him a candidate for the Sage and granting him the right to participate in the night party. He received the second to last title, and Kimberly was the one who proposed this title for him. It was also she who explained to the school, helping him get out of some troubles. She told him to go greet his fans, and he was praised by the students for dealing with Felix's faction. Charlotte came to give him a talisman for protection, congratulating him. This talisman would protect him from his reckless fighting style. Both promised to get stronger to face each other at the night party, and Yaya vowed not to hold back against Charlotte. A few days later, Ration returned to his room with Yaya and suddenly saw a girl hanging herself. Yaya thought he had kidnapped the girl and brought her to the room, but they had been together the entire time. He had to untie the girl, who had a dog that seemed to be a puppet. She said she had food she hadn't used yet to thank him. He tried a cake, but it was extremely salty. She explained that she ran out of sedatives and used salt instead. She then went to the bathroom, poured water over herself, and lay on the bed waiting for him. He had to ask what her true intentions were, and she said it was to assassinate him. He then went to ask Charlotte, who guessed that with white hair and a dog, it must be Frey. She was a third-year student ranked 99th in the school and also had a code. She probably intended to eliminate him before the night party because he had risen to 100th rank, causing some to be fearful. As they mentioned Frey, they saw her outside making a trap with a dirty magazine as bait. Raishin couldn't believe she was foolish enough to think that trap would work, and she ended up getting trapped in it herself. Sword King Loki arrived and was puzzled by her antics. Raishin noticed the two looked similar and was told they were siblings. However, Loki didn't respect his sister, feeling superior because he was stronger. Suddenly, the siblings had a disagreement and decided to have their puppets fight. Yaya intervened to stop the two puppets. Raishin pointed out that the night party was tomorrow, so it was too early to fight. Loki told Raishin to get lost because he hated yellow-skinned people, but Raishin retorted that he hated arrogant white people. They called each other fools and almost fought, but Charlotte stepped in to stop them. Loki advised Raishin to withdraw from the night party and stay away from him and his sister. Raishin then freed Frey from the trap, and she thanked him. The reason for the siblings' fight was Loki's animosity towards her. Raishin decided to learn more about Frey. Upon hearing from Charlotte which class Frey was in, he went to investigate but found out that all people knew about Frey was her large bust size. Charlotte asked Raishin whether he preferred large or small breasts, and he replied that if he liked someone, the size didn't matter. However, Yaya pointed out that Raishin preferred Frey's size. Charlotte, convinced by Yaya, berated Raishin and stormed off. Once again, Raishin felt angry at Yaya for causing misunderstandings. He then attended remedial classes with teacher Kimberly, but wasn't paying attention and got hit with a piece of chalk. She reminded him to focus because the night party was approaching, and as the 100th rank, he would have the hardest time. The structure of the night party had the 99th and 100th ranked participants fighting first, with the winner advancing to fight the 98th and so on, until reaching the top rank. Losing a glove meant losing the match. He couldn't exploit loopholes, as only the higher ranked participants could do that. Frey had a reason to win. Her father wanted her to win so she could reunite with her pack of dogs. That night, Raishin dreamed about being compared to his brother, and decided to leave home to study and become stronger than his brother. He woke up sensing someone behind him, thinking it was Yaya, but when the lights turned on, Yaya entered, and next to him was Frey. Raishin noted that Frey was carrying a weapon, but it didn't matter anymore. The next morning, Yaya cried in the bathtub while Raishin tried to get the school to handle Frey's situation. Charlotte arrived with information about Frey's family. Frey and Loki's family owned a mechanical company specializing in puppet production and often bribed influential people. Raishin didn't care about this and focused on the upcoming night party, remembering to bring the talisman Charlotte gave him. Suddenly, Frey's dog attacked Raishin, injuring him. Frey couldn't control it, so Raishin had to push the dog away and threw a stun bomb at it, calming it down. Seeing Raishin injured, Frey took out a first aid kit to bandage him. She thought he would be very angry with her, but he wasn't angry at all and considered it an accident. However, Yaya was very angry and would smash them if he ordered it. Feeling guilty, Frey rode away on her dog. Yaya felt Raishin was terrible for secretly dating another girl. Suddenly, another girl ran up and hugged Raishin. This girl was Kimura, Yaya's sister, and Raishin knew that if Kimura was here, Shouko must want him to do something sneaky. He was right, and Kimura explained on the way, telling Yaya to stay behind this time. Raishin and Kimura then turned invisible to carry out their task. Their invisibility was nearly perfect, so they had no worries about being detected. They reached the cage of the puppet dogs and found the most dangerous one. Meanwhile, Yaya met the dragon and talked about her desire to become human. But if she became human, she couldn't protect Raishin. She felt she might accept being a puppet as long as she was useful to him. However, thinking about Raishin being infatuated with other girls made Yaya unable to bear it. The dragon suggested that Raishin viewed all puppets as humans, and he might not have feelings for her because she resembled a child with a twisted soul. Suddenly, a beam of light shot towards Yaya, injuring her. Kimberly and Xiaoko met, and this was a punishment for Reishin sneaking out of the school. But Xiaoko defended Reishin, as they needed his strength now. Xiaoko left, leaving Kimberly to take care of Yaya. Meanwhile, Reishin encountered the matriarch of the puppet dogs. Despite being invisible, she sensed their presence and demanded they introduce themselves. Reishin respectfully introduced himself, asking if the dogs outside were her descendants. She confirmed that only a few were, and the dog Frey was using was one of her children. Reishin knew she was the prototype for the puppet's ability to identify everything through sound. But she was a puppet made from a living creature. Now deemed worthless, she was about to be discarded. Reishin couldn't accept those who valued life based on money and decided to free her. Yomi found Reishin interesting and wanted to know why he was there. Reishin explained that Frey was trying to assassinate him. Upon hearing about Frey, Yomi decided to accompany him to find out why Frey was acting this way. Reishin realized he hadn't asked her name, and she introduced herself as Yomi. Meanwhile, Yaya woke up, and the dragon commented on how tough she must be to survive. He intended to call someone to repair her, but Yaya couldn't be fixed through conventional methods. She needed Reishin's magic. Charlotte arrived, wanting to provide some magic to repair Yaya, but it consumed so much that even Charlotte found it hard to provide enough. Kimberly went to meet the doctor to get information about Reishin. They noticed that Reishin's recovery was very slow, likely because his life force was being continuously drained by Yaya for repairs. Reishin and Yomi went to Frey's room. Frey had been adopted. Her parents were members of a puppet performance organization, but were killed by an out-of-control puppet. Frey and Yomi lived happily together, and Frey was too kind-hearted to take on an assassination mission. Yomi showed Reishin the white-haired children being raised like Frey, who had a unique ability to attract a lot of magic. This ability was extremely rare, found in only 1 in a million. Yomi then revealed that all these children were orphans because they were all created through cultivation. The trio was discovered by the sensory abilities of puppet dogs like Yomi, and they had to escape through a garbage chute. The enemy detected them just before they jumped down. Reishin's wound got infected by the sewage, worsening his condition. If the enemy was too stupid, they might escape, but otherwise, they would be blocked. Yomi realized why Reishin needed to be eliminated. If he won the night party, the puppet dog production project would be scrapped. She and other dogs would be discarded, and puppets like Loki's would be used instead. Those puppets required high skills and were expensive, while the dog-type puppets could be used by amateurs. The trio was discovered, so Reishin jumped into the water to avoid bullets and then attacked the enemies. However, he was soon shot. Yaya had been treated, and the dragon realized the enemy was trying to force Reishin to withdraw, indicating that he might also become a target. Yomi rushed out to take a bullet for Reishin, and Kimura found an escape route, so Reishin had to carry Yomi. However, the enemy kept shooting, and Yomi wanted Reishin to leave her behind. She wanted to rest in peace and thanked him for giving her the last moments of joy. She then bit his shoulder and fell, exploding in the process. Loki found Frey and told her that their father had ordered Reishin's elimination. However, Reishin returned and informed them that he wasn't easy to kill. He told Frey about Yomi's death. Frey didn't blame him. Instead, she thanked him for giving Yomi happiness before she died. But Reishin wished someone would scold him. When he returned to his room, he found Yaya also injured, but she was more worried about him. They argued about Reishin's time with Kimura until Shuko arrived. Reishin knew Shoko had used him as bait to investigate Frey's family's company. Shoko knew he blamed himself, but he couldn't save something that was destined to die. Yomi was a puppet made from a living creature, essentially a living body with a mechanical heart. Her body had lived too long and was near its limit. Shoko reminded Reishin that he was the government's dog, and his next mission was to obtain the energy core of Frey's dog. Reishin realized she was ordering him to kill the dog, but neither Shoko nor the government cared. That night, Reishin and Yaya went to the night party, where Magnus delivered the opening speech. Reishin had to fight Loki instead of Frey. He and Yaya coordinated their attacks, but when Loki counterattacked, Reishin commanded Yaya to dodge, but she still got injured. She asked Raishin for more magic to block the attacks, but he hesitated, worried about his own power, and told her to dodge instead. As a strike was about to hit him, Yaya tried to block it with the magic Raishin gave her. But Raishin, fearing for her safety, took the hit himself. Seeing Yaya cry for him reminded Raishin of his sister from years ago. He had pushed his sister away with harsh words to keep her from stopping him from leaving. Seeing Raishin unable to fight anymore, Loki decided to leave, knowing that if Raishin died, Loki would lose his right to compete. Loki's father scolded him for not taking Raishin's glove, but Loki explained that Yaya would have stopped him, and if he had attacked Yaya, she would have drained Raishin's life force, leading to his premature death. His father didn't understand why Loki, ranked 7th, had dropped to rank 99 to fight, but Loki believed Frey wouldn't win. However, his father didn't care and wanted Loki to fight Frey the next day, instructing him to crush her dog to help her. Meanwhile, Raishin was taken to the hospital. Yaya met her sister Inori, who believed that Yaya was the reason Raishin was injured before. However, Inori had faith that Raishin wouldn't die before defeating his brother. That night, Charlotte and the dragon both noticed that Loki had held back, leaving Raishin only injured. They both knew that if Raishin continued to progress, he would become strong enough to concern them, so Charlotte didn't allow him to fall. During this time, Yaya prayed to the gods to save Raishin and vowed not to be selfishly jealous anymore. Kimberly and the doctor observed that Raishin was lucky because if the wound had been slightly deeper, it would have damaged his lung, and a bit further, it would have injured both his lung and heart. Their suspicion that his life force was being drained was confirmed. Meanwhile, Loki and Frey met to fight their next battle. Frey, once very weak and only hiding behind her brother's shadow, now wanted the strength to protect others and step out of that shadow to fight. She sent her dog to attack, but Loki blocked everything because she was still too weak. Loki threw a dagger, injuring the dog even though it tried to dodge. When Frey attacked again, the dog got severely injured. Loki intended to finish it off, but suddenly the dog grew stronger, draining blood from Frey's body to maintain its power. The dragon knew that sooner or later, Frey would die if this continued. The dog lunged at Loki, and if he injured it further, Frey would die even faster. So, Loki stopped attacking and let the dog pounce on him. Charlotte wanted to intervene, but Kimberly stopped her. At that moment, Yaya and Raishin arrived. Raishin interfered in Loki's fight, leading to an argument between the two young men. Loki wanted to kill the dog to save Frey, but Raishin wanted to save both. Raishin then asked Yaya to restrain the dog. As he ran to Frey, the dog attacked and knocked him down, but Loki saved him so he would have a rival to fight later. Raishin managed to cut off the magic flow that Frey was channeling to the dog, temporarily stopping both of them. When they reached the medical room, Shauko arrived. Raishin asked her to heal the dog. After examining it, she requested the necessary tools. Following the surgery, Raishin thanked Shauko, but she had also obtained what the military wanted: the dog's magic circuit. Thus, she let it live. But it was too early for Raishin to feel relieved, as the dog's chance of survival was still slim. Regarding the earlier incident, Shauko explained to Raishin that Frey had lost control because she had supplied too much magic to the dog, causing it to lose its sanity. She revealed that both Loki and Frey were artificially created children by that company, and due to their immense magic power, their hearts were replaced with mechanical ones. Of course, this process was not always successful, and Raishin had witnessed the failures firsthand. As Raishin was about to leave, Shauko held him back, telling him he was deluding himself. He would accomplish nothing because the company's president was a wise man from 20 years ago. She reminded him of their agreement that he should not die a miserable death. Raishin then went to see Frey, believing that the dog would recover. When it did, he hoped that Frey and Charlotte could become friends, as both of them had difficulties communicating with others. He then asked about Yomi, and she considered Yomi as a second mother. She blamed herself for being weak, which led to Yomi's departure. He decided to leave, and Charlotte knew he was going to rescue the other dogs. She didn't want him to risk his life again after he had saved her once, so she tried to stop him as a way of repaying him. However, he thought that the talisman she had given him had already repaid the favor by keeping him alive. He then used Chimera's invisibility to infiltrate with Yaya, but when they got inside, they found that the dogs had already been taken away. As they were about to wreak havoc, they were surrounded by enemies. Just as they were about to escape, Loki arrived to block their path. Meanwhile, Frey realized that Raishin had left, and Charlotte informed her of his whereabouts, saying that he was a fool who couldn't resist a girl's tears. Miss Kimberly knew about it and was going to drag him back, asking the two girls if they wanted to come along. Frey chose to go, while Charlotte decided to stay, believing that Raishin would escape. Loki then decided to help Raishin. They ran together and temporarily hid in a house. Despite being on the same side, the two young men still argued and called each other fools. Loki was doing this to spite those he hated. They then split up, but when Raishin climbed onto the roof, he saw that the president had arrived. Seeing the president's true nature, Loki decided to rebel, and Raishin joined in the fun, both sending their puppets into battle. Yaya launched a kick, but it was suddenly deflected. Miss Kimberly, nearby, realized that the president's puppet could generate high-temperature compressed air to deflect attacks. Loki's puppet attacked, but the president countered by attacking Loki directly. Loki was injured, and as Raishin tried to sneak up on the president, he was countered. The president's puppet fought while he himself punched Loki, who tried to charge at him. The reason Loki opposed the president was that he had betrayed Frey's trust. Loki tried to muster his strength, but was knocked out, leaving Raishin still standing. Loki got back up to continue the fight. Raishin asked why the president had caused so much suffering for Frey, to which he replied that he was doing everything to advance science. He thought that if progress meant separating someone from their family, he'd rather regress. He sent Yaya to attack, and since Loki could also compress air like the president, he took on the task of blocking the attacks. Yaya then launched an explosive strike, severely damaging the president's puppet. Miss Kimberly saw that Raishin had figured out the mechanism of the puppet and used explosives to counter it. Originally, he intended to use the explosives on Loki, but now he used them on the puppet instead. Yaya then delivered a finishing blow to the puppet, and both young men collapsed. Despite collapsing, they excused themselves as taking a break to compete with each other. They began taunting each other, calling the other a dying fool, prompting Miss Kimberly to decide it was time to intervene. The president intended to eliminate both to gain control over Loki's white puppet, but Miss Kimberly and members of the Sorcerers Guild arrived to arrest the president for breaking the law and experimenting on living beings. The wise man could only stand above the laws of sorcery, not the laws that prohibited experiments on humans without their consent. The next morning, Raishin and Loki were in the hospital. Raishin couldn't help but make fun of the fact that he was spending time with the nurse, who was also his puppet. Frey visited with her dogs. Raishin told her that Loki was very worried about her, causing Loki to bring out his puppet and challenge Raishin to a fight. Raishin didn't back down, willing to fight if necessary. Frey stopped them, suggesting that Raishin might become part of the family in the future. Realizing she had misspoken, Frey ran away, and Yaya, not forgiving Raishin for cheating, grabbed her sword, which was also Loki's puppet, and went after him. Raishin then escaped to the rooftop and met Frey again. She apologized for Loki shooting Yaya. He said he would settle the score at the party. Frey planned to continue participating in the competition to earn the right to learn forbidden magic and turn their hearts back to human. Even though Loki also wanted this, she wanted to do something for her brother on her own. Raishin then remembered Charlotte, who seemed to still be angry with him from the night before. Suddenly, he saw Charlotte about to jump off the building, and he rushed to save her. But his injured arm failed to hold on, causing them both to fall. Yaya saved both of them, but Charlotte seemed not to remember Raishin and accused him of trying to do something inappropriate. She ran away, while Yaya, furious and jealous, was about to stab Raishin when they both noticed the dragon and Charlotte wreaking havoc at the school. The school had just inaugurated a new clock tower, only for Charlotte to send the dragon to blow it up. Raishin then asked Frey about the girl he had just saved, who didn't look like Charlotte. Frey informed him that it was Henry, Charlotte's identical younger sister. Henry had attempted suicide 6 times, but was always saved in time, whether it was by the rope snapping or an antidote being administered. Ration wasn't sure if this was fortunate or unfortunate. He also heard that Charlotte had been missing since the previous day and decided to look for her. He met with the doctor, who only knew about the clock tower explosion, which people believed was caused by Charlotte. Ration then met Frey again, and she brought along her pack of dogs to help search. The 3 decided to look for Charlotte, starting with Henry's location. Meanwhile, at a distinguished person's residence, a young man instructed a bespectacled girl to deal with Ration, as it would be troublesome if he lingered around. This girl was actually Charlotte, proven by her ability to ride a dragon and fly away. Ration's group went to the girls' dormitory, where Frey found one of Henry's panties, as Henry had gone missing again. She let the dogs sniff it and set them off to find her. Yaya thought Ration enjoyed such perverted things, just like the dogs. The dogs quickly located Henry, and Ration found her stuck in a tree. He asked where Charlotte was and why Henry kept trying to harm herself. If Henry knew anything, she should speak up. Yaya suspected Henry was staging this to get Ration's attention, leading to Ration scolding her. Frey echoed Yaya's suspicion and was scolded as well. Henry thought Ration was a brute and feared he and the dogs would do something indecent to her. Yaya also believed Ration had perverted thoughts and threatened to stab him and die together. Henry used the opportunity to escape, while Frey began to adopt some of Yaya's crazy ideas. By evening, Ration wanted Frey to return, and he would continue searching a bit longer before heading back. Ration and Yaya then decided to go back to the girls' dormitory, but they suddenly ran into Charlotte again. She asked him not to interfere anymore and walked away. However, seeing her expression, Ration couldn't just stay out of it. Previously, Charlotte had struggled to express her feelings to Ration. The dragon advised her to speak up to lighten her burden, but she feared being too easy, leaving the dragon helpless. Suddenly, Henry came to see her. The sisters hadn't seen each other for a long time. Charlotte wanted to know why her sister was there, and Henry replied that she was there to bring misfortune to her. Ration had decided to return to attend the night party, but his opponent, who was supposed to be Frey, had forfeited the match, so his new opponent was number 87, who also forfeited. Henry once again contemplated suicide, but Charlotte stopped her, asking Henry to endure until this was over so they could be together again. Ration then went to find Miss Kimberly. He knew she was a member of the Sorcerer's Guild, which was why he hadn't been caught despite escaping several times, and why Loki and Frey's puppets weren't confiscated after the last incident. He promised to keep this secret as a way to repay her. He then wanted to know who was controlling Charlotte. He knew she wouldn't use the dragon to kill, and there were no casualties from the clock tower explosion. He learned that the clock tower's destruction was aimed at the headmaster, and the only family with a grudge against the headmaster was Felix's family. If Felix's family wanted revenge, killing Ration wouldn't be enough. They would also have to target the headmaster to restore their honor. Felix's family was known for their charity work, whereas Charlotte's family had been involved in a scandal when a puppet dog went berserk and nearly killed the crown prince. If this incident became widespread, Charlotte would be the one to be disgraced, while Felix's family would remain unscathed. However, Ration couldn't do anything without evidence. Acting rashly would only bring more trouble for the Charlotte sisters. He then returned to his room and explained to Yaya that he didn't like Charlotte. He just wanted to help her so they could face each other in a fair fight someday. He wanted to help anyone in trouble, and if Yaya was willing to follow him, there would be rewards in the future. She wanted to be his wife, but he refused. The next morning, Ration heard some people talking about how Charlotte had destroyed the clock tower and that she might be the real criminal behind the puppet murders, while Felix was wrongly accused. They also gossiped about Ration's involvement. As he walked away, he saw Henry running somewhere. The headmaster was overseeing the investigation, and Ration recalled Miss Kimberly's words about the headmaster being the target. At that moment, Charlotte, riding her dragon, aimed at the headmaster, and Henry tried to stop her sister. Ration asked Yaya to call Shauko while he ran to save Henry and the headmaster. However, Charlotte's dragon attacked, causing everyone to fall underground. Yaya, returning, wanted to rush in to find Raishin, but Miss Kimberly stopped her, saying that if they interfered now, Raishin would be suspected, and he wasn't that easy to kill, so Yaya should help her instead. Charlotte realized she had just killed someone. As the police's puppet attacked her, a white-haired man came to her aid and took her back to the noble's place. He told her she hesitated when attacking, leaving the headmaster's fate uncertain. However, her sister and Raishin were also involved and had fallen into an underground cave. Raishin then woke Henry up. She still wanted to avoid him, but he showed her that they were stuck and needed to find a way out. They ventured into what seemed to be an old, abandoned place. Raishin told a ghost story to scare Henry, making her cower in fear. He then said it was just a joke because he had just arrived and didn't know anything about the place. He noticed she was very afraid of ghosts and dying, yet she kept contemplating suicide. He reassured her that Yaya would definitely find them if she knew he was with another girl. Frey saw the recent incident and heard that Raishin was involved, so she tried to sneak in but was chased away. Loki advised her not to get involved because Raishin had just left the hospital and already got into trouble. He seemed to be cursed with bad luck. Yaya and Miss Kimberly went to meet two members of the Sorcerer's Guild. They wanted Miss Kimberly to just observe, but she had to prioritize the safety of the headmaster and the school. As for Raishin, he was the one mentioned by the master, so they would ask for the master's opinion before taking any action. Miss Kimberly believed that since Raishin was mentioned by the master, he wouldn't die easily. Meanwhile, Raishin and Henry were still finding their way underground. Suddenly, Henry stumbled and Raishin had to pull her up. He wondered why she hated boys, and she explained that she found boys scary and violent. So, he tried to show kindness and care, noticing that she was injured, and decided to stop and give her some food. He realized she really resembled Charlotte, but Henry felt inferior to her sister. Raishin shared that he, too, used to be compared to his older brother. He explained some things about Charlotte that even Henry misunderstood. Suddenly, Magnus's puppet attacked, and Raishin recognized it as being similar to his younger sister. He couldn't forget when Magnus appeared at the fire and claimed he did it to create a god. Raishin then met Magnus again, but this time he was with the headmaster. The headmaster was waiting for rescue and asked Raishin to restrain himself. Raishin, seeing Magnus command the puppet like his sister, couldn't hold back. He confided in Henry about his revenge goal and asked her to keep it a secret because he hadn't told anyone else. He told her because he felt they shared a similar fate. Miss Kimberly then went to find Loki and asked him for a favor, promising a reward. She took out a book that piqued Loki's interest. Meanwhile, Raishin was suddenly attacked by the white-haired man, but Magnus sent his puppet to fight back, forcing the man to retreat. The headmaster thought the man was targeting him, but it was clear he intended to kill Raishin. The group was eventually found and rescued. Yaya rushed to hug Raishin, worried not about his safety, but that he might have been charmed by Henry. Back in their room, Yaya insisted on checking Raishin, while Frey listened from outside and heard everything. Raishin suddenly mentioned he had a fiancée, disappointing both Yaya and Frey. Yaya knew the truth, that Raishin was forced into an engagement while at home, but now that his family was dead, he didn't need to follow through. However, the engagement hadn't been formally annulled. Frey left, disappointed that Raishin had a fiancée. Suddenly, she ran into Charlotte. That evening, Raishin and Yaya attended the party, but number 87 didn't show up. Raishin decided he would go catch a big shark. The nobleman then realized that Raishin had come to the room to take Henry away, and Frey discovered this. He threatened Charlotte, saying if she didn't comply, he would throw her sister to the thugs. He sent the white-haired man to bring Henry back and said he could deal with Raishin as well. Raishin had taken Henry away to save her because the nobleman constantly threatened her. No matter where she hid, since he had stolen their bait, they would come for him. The white-haired man arrived, and Raishin decided to expose his master. He planned to force him to talk, but the man wanted to see what Raishin could do. The white-haired man moved at incredible speed, forcing Raishin to stay close to Henry. He attacked swiftly, making Raishin channel magic to Yaya to help her fight back. The man suddenly appeared and kicked Yaya away. He then turned back to Raishin, separating him from Yaya. Raishin tried to stand up but was kicked away again. The man aimed to bring Raishin's head back, so Henry stood up to protect him. At that moment, Loki arrived and managed to temporarily match the white-haired man's speed and fight him. Yaya returned, and Frey, along with her pack of dogs, also joined, forcing the white-haired man to retreat. Frey thanked her brother for helping Raishin, but he said he was just following Kimberly's orders. Upon returning, it was revealed that the noble's family was merely acquainted with Felix's family. He did this because Felix's family asked for help, but recent events made him suspect Felix had betrayed him and secretly partnered with the academy. If he could kill the headmaster, both sides would benefit. But if he failed, Felix's family would place the blame on him. Assassinating the headmaster was difficult with Magnus as his bodyguard. But the nobleman didn't care as long as he could see others suffer. Raishin woke up and learned that years ago, Henry had failed to control the puppet dog, causing her family to be harmed. She wanted to die to atone for her mistake, and Charlotte was forced to assassinate the headmaster because of her. So now, if she dies, Charlotte will be freed. Raishin wanted to leave, but his wounds were still there. Henry had long been jealous of her sister, but deep down, she really wanted to save Charlotte, so Raishin decided to do it for her. He then went out to encourage Yaya and borrowed a dog from Frey to search. He met Shauko, who, despite being drunk, was angry because he kept throwing himself into danger. She slapped him and forbade him from appearing before her again. Charlotte was still hesitating. The dragon advised her to choose sincerely because there was no guarantee the nobleman would keep his promise. If she did this, Raishin and others would completely shun her. Raishin was the only one who understood her, and by avoiding him, she was throwing away the happiness she had sought all her life. She couldn't turn back, which made the dragon ashamed of not being able to help her. She decided to proceed, but Raishin and Yaya found her, having followed the dog. Raishin knew he had to fight to bring her back. The dragon grew larger, thinking Raishin was underestimating his power. But Raishin was confident because he had the strongest puppet in the world. He had Yaya attack and then retreated, knowing the dragon would breathe fire. They landed, and the dragon continued attacking from above, forcing Yaya to dodge continuously. She got pinned under the dragon's foot, so Raishin gave her more magic to push the dragon off. They then jumped up, and Raishin rushed to pull Charlotte away. Charlotte noticed Raishin was in bad shape. The white-haired man arrived, intending to kill Raishin. Raishin refused, so the man attacked him and Yaya. Charlotte had the dragon attack, but the man deflected it, injuring his arm. He knew everyone wondered why he, a puppet, could operate and fight so well without being supplied with magic. He proclaimed himself the pinnacle of mechanical science, an advanced automaton, boasting that he was perfect while they, flawed creations, were no match for him. Shauko remembered her pact with Raishin. He would either defeat his older brother or die first. If he died, she would take his body and turn him into a puppet. However, now he was just doing as he pleased. Frey woke up and saw Henry trying to do something rash again, so she stopped her and told Henry about her encounter with Charlotte. Charlotte had asked her not to get involved because she knew Raishin would interfere, whether he knew the details or not. She could handle Raishin alone, but not with Frey involved too. Frey decided to help Raishin anyway, leaving it up to Henry whether to join. Raishin and Yaya still couldn't land a hit on the white-haired man. He targeted Charlotte, shrinking the dragon with a blow. Raishin realized he needed to change tactics and positioned himself behind Yaya, prompting the man to attack him from behind. Raishin feigned an opening, allowing Yaya to grab him and pin him down. Raishin knew the man had weaknesses. If their attacks didn't affect him, there was no reason for him to dodge. Yaya pinned him against the wall and pummeled him, finishing with the dragon's fire. When the man still didn't go down, Raishin called the scent tracking dog to locate the mastermind. Raishin subdued the nobleman, realizing he had to appear to supply the white-haired man with magic once he ran out. The dog could then sniff him out, but the nobleman vanished, leaving the white-haired man to attack Raishin. Enraged, Yaya unleashed her full power, driving the man back and making him retreat. They decided to keep a closer eye on Raishin to ensure he didn't become a significant threat. The nobleman's true identity was revealed as number 87, who had always avoided Ration. She intended to confront him at the next night party. As dawn approached, Charlotte reconciled with her sister, admitting that she was inferior to Henry in that regard, making Henry laugh because her sister wasn't as she had thought. Miss Kimberly then met Magnus, who was revealed to be Ration's older brother. He had tried to create a puppet so lifelike that it was perfect, but he asked her not to reveal anything and let Ration continue his path of revenge. However, she warned him not to dream of creating a real human. Later, Ration was back in the infirmary, surrounded by many girls, much to Yaya's displeasure. Charlotte had no intention of apologizing for dragging him into this mess. The Charlotte sisters misunderstood again, thinking Ration was a pervert who liked judging them by their sizes and probably preferred Frey's. Frey, however, mentioned that being too large was troublesome because it often caused back pain, which annoyed Loki enough to bring his sword over to confront Ration, accusing him of being too lenient, leading to such situations. Miss Kimberly then visited, reminding the group that they owed her a lot. The government would use the frozen assets of Charlotte's family to cover the clock tower incident, thanks to an influential person whose daughter studied at the academy. As for Henry, she would keep her as a maid in her laboratory, ensuring the group remained indebted to her. That was all she needed to say. Ration then continued his life at the academy, determined to grow stronger so he and Yaya could fight against the forces hindering him. However, Yaya's goal remained to become his wife. And thus, the story concludes. Thank you and see you all in the next video.